G'day folks, welcome back. My name's Simon and this channel is all about motorcycles, adventure, camping and touring, or Mad Cat as I like to call it. So yeah, the convicts built all of these roads out here, and they built all of the buildings, the old sandstone buildings out here, like this primary school in Wollombi and the courthouse in Wollombi, and the primary school in Laguna that I went to school at. And when I went to school there, it was a single teacher primary school. Single teacher to teach all the different grades from kindergarten up to year 6. And when we moved up here, there was 12 students, and the New South Wales Department of Education said to the school, if you don't have 13 students by the end of the year, we'll shut it down. And I moved into the area and I became the 13th student. And my old primary school is just up there. You can just see the sandstone building up through the trees. So just up here on the hill is that Laguna house that I was talking about, with the convict cell underneath the kitchen. The kitchen was built as a separate building off the back of the main building. Unfortunately, it's all kind of grown up, these trees here, so, you know, not as easy to see anymore. But that's Laguna house. And on the front of it, there's 4 big pillars supporting the roof, and one of the pillars there got broken, you know, like 150 years ago. Like, these are all built in the 1860s or something, or the 1840s, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, the one of the pillars got broken, and so it was replaced with a piece of timber that was found locally, because they couldn't get the same colour sandstone as the rest of the building to replace this pillar with, because the building is built out of sandstone that came from England as ballast on sailing ships. So the sailing ships would get here with their human cargo, the convicts, with sandstone in the ballast area of the ship, and then it would be loaded up with wool or you know, other things that were being sent back to England. So the ballast would be offloaded here. So it's got a very pale sandstone that, or a very different colour sandstone that doesn't match the pale sandstone of this area. And I believe the sandstone around here is probably Morini sandstone, which is very similar in makeup to what Uluru Ayers Rock is made from, Morini sandstone. But the difference with the rock is that the rock is red because it's full of iron oxide and it's rusting. So years ago, this being the old Convict Road, the road used to literally wrap right into the corner there, and they've modified it a little bit since. And just up above here, there's actually another road that probably most people don't remember anymore. So anyway, this bridge here was actually built by the convicts, and that's the Convict Road going into it and coming out the other side. We used to have to drive across that as a kid, Thompson's Bridge. Then a little bit further up here, we start seeing the culverts built by the convicts. So this culvert just up here is Murray's Run culvert, because that's Murray's Run Road up there that goes up to Colnura. So does the main road. And the culverts were all built by the convicts as well. I'll stop at one shortly. So when the convicts were building the road surface, laying the cobblestone and all that sort of stuff. If a convict was unfortunate enough to die, well, you could say fortunate enough to die, because it was hard labour. So when a convict died, they didn't have time to stop and have a funeral and bury them somewhere, and they literally got laid down in the next section of road to be laid. So this is Finances Crossing culvert just here, built in 1831. And so the convict's body was laid down and the road was built over the top of him. So this road literally is littered with bodies. And that particular culvert there, Finances Crossing culvert, or Finances culvert, is said that, you know, once in a while, the water that runs through it will run red with blood. Of course, just scary stories, I'm guessing. I've never seen that. And this is Finances Crossing here. And when I was a kid, I used to walk down here and walk up through these, all through these hills here, and there was no houses or anyone around here. It was great. I mean, now I can just see houses in all these valleys. It's quite disappointing, because it used to be very secluded and isolated out here. So this is the property that I grew up on, just here. And this is where my mother passed away, right there. And our house was there. And we moved that house from Gosford, cut it in half with chainsaws, and it was put on 2 trucks and driven up this road from Gosford all the way up to here. You might be able to see some here. Oh yes, still here. So just here you can see the cobblestone from the Convict built road. So all of this stone was laid by hand, and that was the main road that went from Sydney all the way up through Wiseman's Ferry, came across to Buckety, and then all the way up through to Newcastle. And it was all built by convict labour. Would have been hard work. And then there was one more thing I wanted to see up here, but I've been told that it's been destroyed. On a corner up here that apparently has just been rebuilt, there was a water hole dug out of the sandstone by the convicts. And in my lifetime, it was never ever empty. I mean, it was green and full of algae and stuff, but you could always get water out of it. And that was because the convicts were up here working in the mountains here, and they had to have access to water. And this particular bit of road here is one that claims a lot of lives, particularly for motorcyclists, because they come racing through here and the corners tend to switch back on themselves, really quite shockingly. Like this one up here goes right around in a sharp bend. And they can't build it across there because it's a couple hundred metres down. So the convict drinking hole used to be just here on the side of the cliff. But my brother told me it's been destroyed. Looks like it too. Oh no, there it is. It's not destroyed. Okay, so I'll try recording this on the phone. This is the convict drinking hole here. And, oh, there it is. So, the convicts carved this out with picks and that sort of thing. You can actually see down in here the marks where they used to chip away at it, and they just carved out this hollow here, and there's a spring somewhere that comes out here, which is why they carved it out. And I'm going to get out of here because I'm standing on the edge of a very sharp corner, and people are freaking out as they're driving around seeing me there. dressed in safety black. Anyway, I'm going to shoot up to the top of the mountain here, turn around and come back down. I'm so glad that's still there though, because that is a piece of, you know, Australian convict heritage, convict history. You know, they were here and they cut all of this to make the road through here, and that was where they could get water, on the side of a mountain. Anyway, catch you in a bit. Okay, so the convict drinking hole that's there was actually a lot higher above the road surface, because they built this up so that they could slightly camber the road and make it a bit safer. And down in the side there, which you probably can't see from this camera, but I took a couple of photos, is all sandstone blocks that they used to build the road on the side of the mountain here, because there was nothing else to use. Anyway, I'll shoot up to the top of the mountain here, turn around and come back down. And when I say this road is dangerous, as a child growing up down the bottom in the valley, we had the only house that was visible from the road, and we used to get calls. There's that sandstone underneath, and it's a very long way down. So we used to get calls from the ambulance service on the house phone asking us to drive up here to see crash victims, see what we could do for them, and then go back and ring the ambulance and tell them if they needed to send the helicopter out. And this here, Lemming Corner, is called Lemming Corner because everybody drops off it like lemmings. Cars used to keep going straight off there all the time. Anyway, I remember there was an accident that happened up here once when I was little, before my mum died. And she died when I was 10, so, you know, I was quite little when this accident happened. And again, we had the only house that was visible from the road, and we used to run on generator power and 12-volt power because at the time it was far too expensive to put on the 240-volt electricity. And we usually always had a light on somewhere. And Mum was in bed asleep, so was Dad, and she woke up hearing somebody calling out, "Help me, help me, help me." And she ran out the front of our house, and she said she found this guy crawling with his fingernails along this road. He'd crashed his car up there near Lemming Corner, and he had crawled all the way down here to our house because he knew our house was there, because none of these other houses that are visible here now were visible at all. There was one or two other houses out here, but they were tucked in valleys behind all of the hills here. And this guy had crawled all the way up there to our house. And Mum went out to help him and got my dad, and they called the ambulance. The guy had crawled because he thought he'd broken his back. And so he dragged his legs behind him and crawled on his, you know, on his stomach with his fingernails, pulling him along all the way to our house. I mean, it's a good 2 or 3 kilometres